There has been a lot of commotion recently in the community regarding whether or not a new Yugioh Ban List should be released. However, there has not been a lot of discussion regarding what changes should be made if a ban list were released. For some people believe that previously Tier 1 decks like ABCs, DDDs, and or Metal Foes that may have been deserving of some form of hit 3 to 8 weeks ago when numerous people made their ban list prediction videos because they thought they were going to get a ban list, are no longer dangerous enough to deserve that hit. Well, allow me to add my thoughts to the discussion regarding what important steps Konami at this point in time could take to improve the overall state of the game. For challenge and brevity purposes, I have limited this discussion to the top 10 single cards I would change on the ban list, for this list is certainly not everything I would change, just what I feel is most important. Note, it is important to understand that this top 10 list and how it would relate to the ban list would be that there would only be one ban list that would come out before the TCG receives link summoning. So the idea of link summoning has some level of influence on this list. So with that, let us begin. Number 10. For the first card on the list that I believe needs to get cut down to size, so to speak, is a card that a number of people have forgotten about thanks to the incredible hype and success surrounding another similar type of card. This card, Card of Demise, which got heavily overshadowed by Pot of Desires. At its best, Card of Demise is a +2 with a 3-card deck thin and the ability to set up numerous back row cards to interrupt your opponent's next play or set up your next turn. On its average, Card of Demise is typically a +1 with a 2 or 3 card deck thin. That certainly qualifies as powerful. Some may argue that the discard from hand and cannot special summon during the activated turn produce sufficient control on the effect, but these controls do nothing but ensure that it cannot be splashed into all decks, and if the generic or splashable attribute were required for the ban list treatment, well, spellbooks would be dominating the meta. Also, with the format changing to a less consistent and less fast environment, decks that would be better formatted to maximize the effectiveness of Card of Demise should become more popular. With that said, it's time for Card of Demise to drop down to 1. Number 9. In the number 9 position rests the first card that I feel should be released from the ban list prison, Performage Damage Juggler, which should move from the banned to semi-limited status. Damage Juggler was a card that, in my opinion, was rather unfairly banned, largely the victim of the overall power of Pepe, which took advantage of Juggler's search effect to set up quick and effective XZ summoning. Seriously, look at the list of Juggler's associates: Plushfire, Wavering Eyes, Pendulum Sorcerer, Luster Pendulum, Monkey Board, Skullcrobat Joker, and Lavolval Chain. Yeah, Damage Juggler's the main problem in this group. Not a chance. However, with most of those associates sitting somewhere on the ban list along with Damage Juggler, it is time for the Juggler to return to the play environment, for without his friends at the ready, it is just a solid card in the Performage archetype, and a nice tech for those who want to attempt to reduce the probability of OTKs as well as combat various burn decks. Number 8. At number 8, let us welcome the second card on this list that should be moved from the ban list back into the play pool, El Shaddoll Construct, jumping right from banned to semi-limited. In reality, Construct looping is nowhere near as dangerous as it once was, thus leaving it at 1 really isn't necessary, and the lack of Construct heavily limits the overall power of the Shaddoll archetype, not only through the loss of its boss monster, so to speak, but simply through the loss of a light-associated fusion summon, and the combination plays that could be made by sending various light monsters with Shaddoll fusion. Overall, Construct was never ban-worthy in the first place because it does not have any inherent protection from card effects, unlike a card like Winda. In a lot of respects, one could make a strong argument that the banning of El Shaddoll Construct was a quote-unquote profit ban. Now, in a play environment with more answers than ever to deal with the protection-lacking Construct, leaving her on the ban list is just pointless and, in some respects, cruel. But wait, some may say, if my 8 and 9 actually happen, then Shaddoll Clowns might come back. The meta needs to fear the potential return of Clown Shadal's. Why? Number 7. In a blow to all of those players that plan to circumvent the obstacles to mass extra deck summoning in the new Link system, for my number 7, I believe it is finally time to ban Level Eater, or at least errata it in the TCG, to read that you can only use the effect of Level Eater once per turn. Level Eater was always one of those flood cards, in that it could only get better with time when more options became available to enhance its overall power and combo effectiveness simply through natural card design and evolution. The simple fact is that the play environment has reached the point, in my opinion, where Level Eater is too combo effective to remain in the game without any limit to the number of times its effect can be activated in a single turn. Number 6. For the number 6 slot, I invite Moon Mirror Shield out of the play pool and into the ban list prison. When Moon Mirror Shield was first released, I acknowledged the danger of having an equip spell that made the equipped monster unbeatable when it came to battle outside of facing an Armades type monster. While there are a number of monsters that can take advantage of this effect, this card has become most famous for its use in barrier statue decks, in anti-special summoning, i.e. anti-fun cancer deck, to combat the meta. When a card is the key card to a deck that is solely designed to eliminate fun from the game, in my book that is a card that needs to get the axe. Moon Mirror Shield, welcome to Banville. Number 5. Here at the number 5 spot, a card that represents a misused engine that produces significant first turn advantage that will not be meaningfully mitigated by the new Link system. It is time to remove Gem Knight Seraph Knight from the game by banning it. Most Gem Knight decks do not even run this card because it is not worth the resources, as well as there being other more valuable choices, so continuing to allow this card to exist really only boils down to providing non-Gem Knight decks with a luck-based mini-engine that produces important and somewhat unfair first-turn advantage with both a quasi-foolish burial effect, as well as a second normal summons and a free level 5 monster. Before anyone cries about losing the second normal summons capacity, simply switch to the Symphonic Warrior engine using mics and guitar, because at least that system provides less inherent advantage while maintaining the same second normal summons attribute. Also, getting rid of Seraphinite addresses a major concern some might have in bringing back Damage Juggler. Number 4. At number 4, we have another card that has deftly evaded the ban list, but no more if this list has anything to say about it. It is time to limit Interrupted Kaiju Slumber to 1. Overall, this card is simply too powerful to remain unlimited. It is a dark hole that thins the deck to quasi-bad draws, for kaijus are slow and reactionary, and then summons those cards to the field, with the controller frequently giving him or herself a 3000 plus attack point monster that will destroy the other 2000 something attack point monster, doing anywhere from 600 to 1000 damage. So, in short, it's a mass field clearer that does 6 to 1000 damage, plus puts a 3000 attack point beater on the field. Yeah, that's balanced. And that is Slumber at its worst level of effectiveness. At its best, it is a huge OTK enabler, and in my book, the fewer generic and rather conditionless OTK enablers that are available in the game, the better. The condition that one must run kaijus in the deck to run slumbers really is not a sufficient conditional restriction in my opinion. If all of that were not enough, after Slumber has nuked the field, and if the opponent manages to survive, and heck, even produces some form of threat on the board, its banished from the graveyard effect, resulting in a kaiju search, provides the player with a costless, almost guaranteed response for dealing with that threat. How is this card still at 3? Number 3. My number 3 addresses one of the two most annoying trap cards in the game. Dimensional Barrier is an extremely powerful card that has the potential to completely stop any major power tempo plays that an opponent may attempt during an entire turn with absolutely no negative for the activating player. The ability of Barrier to act as a monster-type specific breakthrough skill also has its moments. There are a number of situations where a first-turn activation of Barrier will put the opponent so far behind the advantage in tempo 8 ball that realistically the duel is basically lost. at this point in time, Dimensional Barrier is better than Solemn Strike due to its ability to shut down multiple summons attempts of the same monster summoning strategy. There are a number of decks where the opponent will only be able to normal summon or set a monster under these conditions. Therefore, it is important that the first ban list since Dimensional Barrier was released actually addresses this power by knocking it down to the limited portion of the ban list, i.e. only one copy of Dimensional Barrier for you. Some may argue, oh, but with the new Link summoning system, Dimensional Barriers just aren't very useful anymore. Really? You're going to go with that? No. The drop in Dimensional Barrier's effectiveness is minor, if really anything at all. Oh no, I can't stop Link summonings. Yes, but I can still stop everything you would have summoned after your Link summons. Dimensional Barrier still very strong card, even after Link summoning is introduced. Incidentally, though, the overall problem, in my opinion, with Dimensional Barrier was just poor conditional design. It really should have been like Cold Wave, in that its controller should have only been able to activate it at the start of a player's main phase 1. The fact that it's chainable is really, in my opinion, what makes it too powerful. Number 2. In the past, my number 2 has always been my number 1, but I knocked it down to number 2 for this list for the good of the game. You'll see why when it's time to talk about number 1. But now is time to talk about number 2, Vanity's Emptiness, and how it should be banned. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This ban is rather obvious and should have been made a long time ago. Typically, almost every deck has at most 3 to 5 direct outs for this one card, and if the opponent has a 2200 plus attack point monster on the field with Emptiness face up, it heavily limits the monster-based outs, especially those that are commonly run in a vast majority of competitive main and side decks. Basically, Vanity's Emptiness plus any quality monster, and a vast majority of the time, the duel is over. Even when the duel does not end, for example, the opponent is able to sit on a high defense point monster, the duel then slows to a frustrating and rather annoying crawl that reeks of anti-fun. The fact that there are decks that can create so-called lockdown boards at a reasonable level of consistency is regrettable, but an acceptable part of the game for me if a player needs to make numerous card combinations to do so. However, a 2-card lockdown combination with Vanity's Emptiness and any decent monster is not acceptable. It is finally time for the banhammer to bonk Vanity's Emptiness. Before I go on to my number 1, some viewers might be wondering about the lack of some of the more popular choices from past ban list, desire videos. First, I don't have Norden banned because the new Link system has effectively neutered his value as a surprise or blowout card, which is where I thought his major problem was. Under the new Link system, no longer will one simply be able to plop down a Utopia the Lightning on top of a number 39 Utopia, and also Bahamut Shark is no longer able to just spit out a totally awesome. In the new Link system, one copy of Norden should be fine as a means to aid Link summoning, but not ruin your day with some cheap Utopia the Lightning summons or an even cheaper Totally Awesome summons. Second, I don't have Kieran on the list, because again, Link summoning has done a good neuter job on the pendulum mechanic. To have a mechanic that has had a significant portion of its identity and niche robbed from it, taking Kieran away from pendulums now would really just be effectively saying, I see Konami just kicked you in the balls. Let me have some of that too. No. Have Kieran at 1. Yes, Kieran can bounce itself back to the hand, eliminating itself from the possible extra deck lockdown. But overall, 1 Kieran is not a huge problem even right now, and will be even less of a problem in the future when Link summoning shows up. Third, I don't have any hits on ABCs on this list. I feel the deck would need to get hit in some capacity, although that hit would be very tricky, because if you just drop Union Hanger to 1, you're kind of killing the deck. Union Hanger is an incredibly important card for that deck. Overall, though, regarding ABC hits, I do have some. The hits just aren't in my top 10. Fourth, I really just don't care much about what happens to Dante, and realistically, under the new Link system, until Burning Abyss receive a new Burning Abyss Link monster, limiting Dante is definitely back burner material, because no longer can you just spit out a bunch of Dantes and have a masterful board presence. Number 1. The general environment in which I'm pulling my number 1 should be rather obvious when considering the current state of the game and my desire to maximize the number of decks that can compete in a quote-unquote pure form. To put it simply, the best thing Konami could do to improve the game on a casual and a competitive level right now would be to ban Zodiac Trident. Banning Trident would accomplish many positives in the game. First, I believe that Trident is the chief reason Zodiacs are splashed into other archetypes as an engine that commonly produces enhanced play mechanic to increase the advantage of going first, thereby increasing the overall influence of luck. In my opinion, Trident is clearly the most important endpoint for the Zodiac XZ portion of the engine due to its quick play destruction effect. Without Trident, a splashed playset of Rapiers for a non-Zodiac deck can still produce some nice advantage with a generic XZ and maybe a 0 attack point Zodiac XZ, more than likely Broadbulb, with a Whiptail in hand, along with some deck thinning. Okay, that's definitely something, but without Trident's ability to interrupt the opponent's play, the board is much weaker. Without the destruction capacity of Trident, how many people would be willing to continue to run the splashed engine over other options? In my opinion, without Trident's interruptibility, the Zodiac engine becomes much less attractive for a number of other decks. Even if players still splash in the Rapiers for the rank 4 shenanigans, the engine loses a lot of its power, for no longer can it make a one-card interrupter that has the potential to snowball into further advantage if the opponent does not have an immediate response to it. Yes, there are some players that would run Rats and Bull to search for Black Sheep, but that seems even less threatening because you search Black Sheep instead of Whiptail. So those extra draws better be great. Second, banning Trident also eliminates any need to produce collateral damage bans on cards like Tedkey, MX Saber Invoker, or Terrortop to reduce the consistency of the engine. Instead, this ban, which deals with the splashability of the engine directly. I've never understood when people complain about card X, but then only advocate hitting card Y because it helps card X out. If card X is the problem, just ban card X, which is exactly what I recommend here. Third, while Trident is definitely a useful card in Zodiacs, it is not a super critical card. The pure Zodiac deck is still very competitive without Trident, as it operates as an excellent rank 4 toolbox with nice secondary effects for protection and banishing through its main deck monsters. Also, with Rapier and Barrage at the ready and still at 3, Zodiacs are more explosive than any other rank 4 deck. Some may argue that hitting Trident this early is not fair. Tell that to all of the Pepe players that lost their decks in basically a blink of an eye. Just like what happened to Pepe, removing Trident is the right choice for the good and positive evolution of the game. Well, those are my top 10 cards that I feel should move from one position to another position on the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.